Hey Laowinners, it's Laowi86 here with another video. Today we're going live. Reason being is actually on my Patreon, patreon.com/Laowi86. I put up a poll of all of the video ideas that I had roaming around in my little brain. And also I talked to a lot of the patrons who gave me a lot of suggestions for video ideas. And one of the video ideas that was really, really popular was to compare all of the American states and compare them with the Chinese equivalent of their province, basically. So, for example, what would Guangdong province be, as a state? Would it be Alabama? Would it be New York? Sorry, we're under attack! Anyway, another update to that is that I actually was putting together that video, and I'm not done yet, so it's going to be next week's video. And this week I figured I'd tell the story of Lei Fung, one of my favorite fictional/real Chinese historical figures. I'm very much more into modern Chinese history than classical Chinese history, and this one's still relevant today. It's still almost cult-like within China. And I also figured, with all of this crap that's happening around the world, with all this horrific negativity, wouldn't it be nice just to cover something kind of funny and kind of entertaining, kind of classic, old school Laowi style? I love to watch biographies and, kind of pieces about historical figures, or even modern day historical figures. And I figured, since I know a lot about China, why not cover one of the most prolific ones and talk about his cultural significance today? I promise you guys are going to enjoy this. I think you're going to like it quite a bit. Little tiny update as well. I'm feeling quite a bit better. So thank you to everyone that gave me the well wishes and wished my health to return to normal. I would say I'm probably like 75% better. So thank you so much to everyone that was concerned about me. I know the last video I put out was quite alarming, so I really appreciate that. It's been a bit of a rough ride. For me recently. However, that doesn't mean we can't have some fun today. So, if you have been to China, you have definitely seen this. This is a sight you will see in every city in China, potentially in every district of every city in China, in the countryside, in downtown Shanghai, Beijing, any city, whether it's rich or poor. You will see this piece of propaganda. And you can see this guy up here. We call this the Lei Fung hat. That dude up there with the kind of Russian-looking hat. That is a young man named Lei Fung, and the text next to it says Shuixi Lei Fung. And Shuixi means to study Lei Fung. Now, who is Lei Fung? That is the million-dollar question today, and I think you guys are going to love this delicious piece of propaganda. So you'll go around China and you'll see these posters everywhere. How to be like Lei Fung, how to study him, how to become like him. Now Lei Fung, this is a photo of him, might not have actually existed. This is like the little creepiest part about it. He might not have actually existed. Let me tell you a little background story. He was a PLA soldier, so People's Liberation Army soldier. He was a soldier for the Communist Party of China under Mao's, what's it called? Mao's reign, Mao's rule, Chairman Mao Zedong. And he was portrayed as a saint figure in that he was always caught doing good acts. He was very altruistic, and he was always being caught studying Chairman Mao's little red book, and he was very quotable. To the point where people, even back then, were a little suspicious at his role in propaganda. Like, it looked like it was just a normal citizen, that was in the PLA, People's Liberation Army, that was projected and held on top of a pedestal, basically, for Chinese people, to normal average citizens to look up to as a prime role model in society. Now, let me tell you why it just reeks of propaganda just straight from the beginning. Let me tell you his background, according to the Chinese government and what kids learn at school. Lei Fung's dad, so his father, was murdered by the Japanese troops that invaded China. So that's already like the tropiest thing you could ever have. I'm going to avenge my father who was killed by the evil Japanese. Who, the Chinese Communist Party loves to paint Japan as this horrific entity. And it was. The Empire of Japan was pretty rough. It committed some of the worst human atrocities known to man. However, it's a very convenient scapegoat for China to use in stoking nationalism and making sure that people don't look up to a country like Japan. So his father was killed by Japanese soldiers in the war. His mom killed herself, committed suicide. Do you know why? Because she was driven to insanity because of a landlord that was torturing her. Now, the tenets of Maoism and communism is that they needed to get rid of all the landlords. They murdered a ton of them. So she was this example of this woman that was, or example of a normal Chinese person that was kept under the, under the oppression and torturous ways of the landowners. And so they must be gotten rid of, right? So there's another perfect example. Number 3, his brother, he had 2 brothers. Let me just make sure. Yes. His brother, his older brother died because he was exploited by a child laborer. So this is something that was rampant before Chairman Mao, according to the propaganda of the Communist Party of China, is that the landlords basically enslaved people. Child labor was rife. It was everywhere. It was inescapable, really. And then also, Japan is the big enemy. And then I can't remember how his younger brother died, but his whole family died. Okay. So this sets up this character flawlessly. Now we're talking about China in a time where a good chunk of the population is going to starve to death very soon, if we look at the timeline, or has already starved to death. Most people don't have very basic amenities. I mean, China was Africa level, like sub-Saharan Africa level, impoverished at this point. They did need a lot of important propaganda figures. So what the Chinese government did was to just start releasing these photos about all his good deeds. So Lei Fung would be seen helping people to sew their things. He would be often seen helping old people. Here's him reading Chairman Mao's book just nonchalantly. He was like a transport guy in the PLA. And all of the government always just, again, you guys have to understand, these photos were portrayed as something that were very nonchalantly taken. These photos were just like snapped up and then released into the press somehow, right? So people were meant to believe that, okay, this guy is just such a model citizen. Look at him. He's not even forced to read Chairman Mao's book. It's a book of quotations and Maoist thoughts. He does that on his own volition, right? Perhaps my favorite one, this is probably my favorite picture of Lei Fung. And it's fantastic because we are meant to believe that Lei Fung, I guess this is the story, he was so excited about Chairman Mao's book and his ways of thinking, and Chairman Mao thought that he would stay up into the late of the night and use his little PLA torch, his little People's Liberation Army flashlight to read all the quotations. Now, what I find so amazing about this photo is that it's in a fully lit environment with a flash. So he's in a fully lit room with a flash, and we're talking about a country that doesn't have this type of camera technology unless it's, for top leadership, more or less. So he's he's reading the Chairman Mao's book under the full light of a well-lit environment with a flashlight. And there's even shadows to prove that, which I find absolutely hilarious. But he was also used to just promote like altruism, right? So when you go back, we'll come back to that juicy little piece here. When you go back, it was ridiculous. Like, I'll read you some of these quotes. Back in the day, he would say things like, "It's my duty." And he had this journal, right? "My name is the People's Liberation Army, and I live in China." Now, his diary had all these quotes that were like really important to this idea for the Chinese government that everyone needs to be a model communist citizen, right? So they propped him up with all this stuff. He ended up dying when he was 21. And the story goes that he was struck by a lamp pole, like a light pole, because a truck like backed into it and it crushed him to death. And that was, his legacy was kind of dead after that, but they kept it going. And the weird thing about Lei Fung is it's not just like in the back pages of a textbook. Lei Fung has his own holiday. There's Study Lei Fung Day, where kids have to basically just pretend to be a model citizen just like him, right? They have little plays where all the kids dress up as Lei Fung. He's a communist cult legend. There's almost like a religion behind him. And it's still pushed. And the funny thing is that the youth, if you point it out, I used to joke about Lei Fung in my classrooms in China, especially in university. They would have to draw propaganda, and I wish I put this up, but there's a chalkboard in every Chinese university classroom, and the kids in the propaganda department of the Communist Party, they'll have to draw propaganda, and oftentimes it's like a big picture of Lei Fung. So they'll draw him, and then I'll ask him about it, and I'll be like, what do you think about Lei Fung? And they're like, they just laugh about it because it's something that's been force-fed to them. They all know it's absolute bull. It's just reeks of pure propaganda. They don't hate it. They just think it's ridiculous. It's unbelievable. All of these legends and how he was mythically photographed. But it became a cult. Like says this guy, this is a modern day man. He actually got plastic surgery to look like Lei Fung, and then would pay people to take pictures of him doing Lei Fung things. So here he is, stopping a thief. Stop! I'm a model citizen. Look, he's got a Lei Fung. You see his Lei Fung backpack there? Messenger bag. He's helping a poor old woman. I want to talk to that woman and be like, did they make you like lay down in the rainy street? So it's kind of like a meme in a way. Lei Fung's kind of like a joke. However, the reason I brought this up, and the reason I thought this was funny and kind of important, is that it's still to this day a thing, right? This is a clip of me at my wedding where they made me sing. I'm not going to pierce your eardrums with this, but they made me sing like communist songs. And one of those songs that I had to audition for was actually called Shui Xi Lei Fung, which is study Lei Fung. And I had to sing it. I still remember, Shui Xi Lei Fung Hao Ban Yang. And it was this thing that I had to do in front of these like communist officials. And they just ate it up. They absolutely loved it. In this clip, I'm singing, without the Communist Party, there would be no new China, which is another banger. That track slaps, dude. If you ever want to see these hilarious wedding excerpts, I have a whole series of Lao 86 wedding videos that you can check out. Now, when I say it's still relevant, it's so relevant that there is actually a KFC branch modeled after Lei Fung's good duties. So let me read you a famous Lei Fung quote. You ready for this? We should treat comrades like the breeze in spring. Work hard like summer sunshine. Conquer difficulties like the autumn's sweeping withered leaves. And treat the enemy as ruthless as the cold winter. And we must only eat KFC fried chicken. I just think that is, they literally got a capitalist restaurant from the USA, who is the enemy, and then sponsored Maoist ideology from Lei Fung and made it into like a theme park restaurant for people to eat at. No joke. Lei Fung is promoting communist values, take down the landlords and private ownership, money is evil, eat fried chicken. And they literally did this. This is a real thing. And this is one of those things where I just find it hilarious. We call it chabadoa, means like just good enough. They were so chabadoa, half-assed really, in their approach of like making him into a legend, because none of this stuff is believable. There's a camera crew following him around. And then they continue, even despite it being kind of a meme where kids don't latch onto this idea anymore, they don't give up. And that's the thing. So on Lei Fung Day one year, they released a series of 3 movies just to remember Lei Fung. And they kind of mandated, believe this, the Chinese government tried to mandate that everyone has to see the Lei Fung movie and not other like competing movies. So if I remember correctly, this is when I was in China, they only allowed the Lei Fung movies to play in the theaters, and nobody went. Nobody went to see the movies because no one gave a rat's ass about Lei Fung. They know it's not real. They're tired of seeing the propaganda posters. Imagine you're driving down the street every day and you see study Lei Fung posters everywhere, how to be a model citizen. And you're like, come on, Then the government tells you, no, you're only allowed to watch this movie. Oh my gosh, it was hilarious to see like the box office. They tried to rig the tickets, but at the end of the day, like they couldn't make up the fact that nobody wanted to see it. But it still goes. This is a modern day example. They get celebrities. They're singing the Study Lei Fung song. Probably gonna get hit with copyright if I play this too long, so I'll just fast forward through this a little bit. But basically going around promoting this idea that you should be a model citizen and help people and stuff. And that's all wholesome and good. It's just that none of it is true. And not only is none of it true, the government just hasn't had the balls to admit that it just never happened. They haven't had the balls to admit that Lei Fung probably didn't exist, and there's absolutely no proof for that. And they still just use him as a propaganda tool. And that's just the most hilarious thing, is that in today's modern day propaganda, Lei Fung is not a well-liked being, he's not a well-appreciated being, but is still used as the forefront model citizen for the Communist Party of China. When in fact, the Communist Party of China never actually promotes altruistic values to begin with. So it's almost like, if you criticize Lei Fung and like what they were trying to do, in a way you're being too cynical, because yeah, you should help old ladies cross the street and stuff. You shouldn't get hit by light poles and smashed. But at the same time, you shouldn't be promoting a mythical, recent historical fallacy to promote good values, when people should have other ways of doing so. Not like deitizing or worshiping somebody that represents a government that does not adhere to any of those principles that they're trying to promote. So it's just so, I don't know, I just found it so hilarious that they're still doing this. And so what happened was, he has this diary of all these quotes and things, and they locked it under glass, and it's become this like artifact in a way, right? Now the problem with that is, a lot of his quotes have been proven to be incorrect. A lot of the photos are completely falsified. But the government still goes on full-fledged documentaries about how everything works. It's kind of like the people that prove, like, let's just say like the people that think that dinosaur fossils were put here by like Satan to test our faith in God, and they don't think dinosaurs were really real because Earth's not that old. It's like that. They'll go to like flat Earth level explanations of how Lei Fung was totally real and absolutely like 100% whatever, but nobody watches it because no one cares. No one believes in it, but they still won't admit it. And that's always been the nature of communist governments, is that they always double down when nobody believes something, but they still need it, because like the chain of command doesn't allow people to be wrong. They always double down, and you'll still see probably 20 different Lei Fung documentaries come out every year. The kids still have to celebrate Lei Fung Day. They still have to sing the songs. They still have to learn about him. He's still the main figurehead, in a way, almost more so than Chairman Mao, like Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong is on the money, which is hilarious because he hated money. But his face is on the money. His face is everywhere in old people's houses and stuff. But in propaganda, in modern day propaganda, Lei Fung is more important in that he is deeply seated in the education system, deeply seated in China. And it's just so funny to me to have such a unbelievable figurehead be that representation of these ideals. And I love it. I just think it's fantastic. All right, guys, I'll get to some super chats here. Thank you guys for supporting me and becoming members and joining Patreon and all that, and sending me super chats here. I really appreciate it. It's helped me through a tough month. Jill Sandwich, can you please give your insight on the recent Indian and China news? India is furious and a new country joins the boycott. Could this help defeat the CCP? This is idealistic. The thing is, the skirmish between India and China, right, that's happening right now, is nothing new. If you're talking about casualties and death tolls in the few days that this has been going on, you know, the newest event, it is a little different in that usually it doesn't result in death. But this border dispute's been going on for a long time. And trust me, you're not going to see India and China go to war over this skirmish. This land is not that important territorially. It's more important in terms of face. It's not a massively strategic thing that two massively populated countries would risk full-blown war over. I mean, we're talking about two nuclear powers here. You're going to see a lot of bad blood, that's for sure. You're going to see a ton of anti-Indian, propaganda within China. Probably see a lot of anti-Chinese propaganda within India. I know that it's already happening now. I saw a couple clips from Indian news. China's probably going to try to put a lid on it for as long as they can. For example, they didn't talk about how many casualties that were had during these skirmishes within Chinese state media yet, whereas India is taking every opportunity to do so. But yeah, I mean, I know people love to get excited about stuff like this, but it's not going to turn into a massive, huge conflict other than rallying around the flag, saber rattling, and a good way to stoke nationalism on both sides, if I'm honest. And it's just, in a way, could be used as a distraction at the end of the day. Luke Horimoto, you gotta understand China. You gotta understand Lei Fung, Shui Si Lei Fung, Hao Ban Yang. Junebug, I heard KFC is making a gaming console. Are they? That's crazy. You know what's funny is that KFC made like a dating sim, like a Japanese dating simulator on Steam. It's so weird. Like I feel like KFC is a pretty ballsy company. I mean, they got sponsored by Lei Fung. They made a dating sim and other drama. KFC for the win. KFC in China, by the way, if you've never watched my video about that, is way different than KFC in the US. You should definitely check it out. There's like, you get like full meals there, you know, like bowls and stuff. Whereas KFC here is more like, you just go there for the chicken and mashed potatoes. The Vampire Knight. I'm studying for the SAT coming in August. I'd like to study abroad in Tsinghua one semester when the pandemic is over. How much Chinese yuan should I have saved if I want to live the high life? You're going to do one semester. You should have a good time. Keep in mind, nationalism's like super high right now. And Beijing is in full lockdown again. But hopefully, everything will be okay. I would say if you want to have a good semester, I would probably save like, let me think realistically. I would have 5,000 RMB for spending each month at a minimum if you're going to be at Tsinghua. Maybe 10,000 RMB if you want to, live like a real baller. But that'd be a lot. Between 5 and 10,000, whatever you're comfortable bringing. Bjarne Hall, interesting topic as usual. Out of curiosity, which language do you find to be most difficult, Mandarin or Finnish? Both seem to be a total nightmare trying to learn. My Mandarin's much better than my Finnish. I have to preface this. But I also learned Finnish before I went there, I studied quite a bit just out of pure interest. My language skills were a bit quicker when I was younger. It was just easier for me to learn stuff. That being said, Mandarin came a bit easier to me just because I was living in China and having to use it. Language is not one of those things that is just going to go into your brain through osmosis. People think that, but it will come to you when you're forced to study it because you can't live without it. So if you go to China, and most places in China, you're not going to be able to survive without English unless you're teaching at some a little training center or whatever, and they put you up in your own, room and your own apartment and stuff, and they give you a little helper to help you buy groceries and stuff. If you're trying to make it in China, you have to learn Chinese. And if you want to not be in that expat bubble constantly, you have to learn Chinese. China's English proficiency level, on the whole, there's tons of good English speakers, but on the whole, the English proficiency level of China is much lower than most countries you'll go to. And it's just because of the sheer size of the country, right? I mean, everyone is a pretty proficient Mandarin speaker at this point, especially younger people. It's a country that's cut off from the global narrative or the global conversation in terms of internet censorship and stuff. So it's made English a lot less important for the average Chinese person. So I would say Finnish was a little harder. Mandarin, much harder than Finnish if you're talking about writing and reading. That's for sure. Sean York, do you see Chinese products in the USA that display the city it was manufactured in and brings back fond memories? That's a very specific question, and yes, I do. I actually, I try not to buy made in China at this point, but there's a lot of things left over, little trinkets and toys and stuff that my daughter plays with. And some of them will say like made in Dongguan. I have no fond memories of Dongguan, by the way. It's a terrible factory city. But there will be ones that say like made in Huizhou, and that's actually the city I used to live in. I've seen ones that are made in other really random provinces like Guizhou and Hunan and stuff that remind me of the good old days, It's more realistic nostalgia because I know that right now the situation that China's become. But yeah, back in that golden era, I'll tell you, it was a good time to be in China, and hopefully things will change because I'll be the first person back. Jeremiah Johnson, Matt, I guess you can use this for Michelob or something this time. Might just spark a desire for the real deal and the silver cans. This is Jeremiah. He always sends us money to buy silver bullets, which is Coors Light beer, because he knows I don't like it. And he knows that my partner in crime, Winston, loves it. Come do a ride through Zion Canyon up high in the Unitas in Utah. Me and Vivi actually drove a Subaru STI through that region of Utah. It was absolutely gorgeous. Good idea. Joshua Trumbo, question: how is the Three Kingdoms novel era viewed in modern day China and the characters therein? Are any of the people in the novel seen as heroes? Absolutely. To be honest, the Three Kingdoms is portrayed in pretty much every TV drama and anything related to Chinese culture. It's absolutely something that everyone is aware of, and it's something that's a real part of Chinese culture, and it's still part of Chinese culture today. It's like kind of if you see someone dressed up as Superman in a city here, or like does cosplay Batman or something, the equivalent would be like Three Kingdoms characters. Very, very popular, very, very well known, and very well loved. I wish I could read your name. It sounds like your hospital visit was stress related. I can't imagine what you and where the heck did that go? Your family are going through with what you saw going on in China and now all the craziness going on here. Yeah, hopefully I can bring it up at some point in more detail. And I appreciate that. It's been a horrific time, and at some point I hope I can let everybody know what's going on. Anyway, sorry, you made my brain go off into a dark place. I am feeling a lot better though, so I really appreciate that. All right, guys, I just wanted to give you a fairly entertaining video. Hopefully you learned something about the great old Lei Fung. Do a little bit more research. A lot of people have gone into some serious deep dives about him. And I'll see you next week with the video about every Chinese province if they were a United States state equivalent. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this one. Going to go through all the different stereotypes of Chinese provinces and the stereotypes of American states based on my travels, because I've been to nearly every Chinese province and nearly every state. Spent a good amount of time in every place. So should be a good video. I hope you guys enjoy it. I want to say thank you so much, Laowinners, and I'll see you next week. I'll probably see you. Yeah, there's no podcast this week. I'll see you next week on Monday on ADV China, on Wednesday on my channel, and next Thursday for the podcast, and Tuesday on Worthless Whips. Thank you so much, Laowinners, and I'll catch you on the